It rained the day we buried him, a soft, persistent drizzle that seemed to blur the lines between memory and reality. The kind of rain that feels like it's been falling for years. Uncle Jack, 71 years old, America. Quiet man, the kind you wouldn't look at twice on the street, was being lowered into the ground with full military honors. There was a flag, a bugler, a line of men in uniform who'd probably never met him. I stood near the casket, clutching the folded triangle of stars and stripes they handed me. My fingers trembled slightly, but not just from the cold. That flag was supposed to go to the next of kin. That wasn't me. I wasn't his son. I wasn't even his closest living relative. But somehow I had ended up with it, because I was, for all intents and purposes, the last one left. Jack had no kids, no spouse, no brothers still living. Just me. The nephew he helped raise like a son when my parents divorced and the custody battle turned ugly. The man who taught me how to tie a tie, throw a punch, and ride a bike on cracked suburban pavement in a town that's probably changed 3 names since. And now, standing there in the rain, I was beginning to wonder if I had ever really known him at all. The rain kept falling. People filtered past me, offering hugs and condolences that felt oddly rehearsed. Neighbors, old friends, men from the VFW hall who remembered him as the guy who fixed their screen door or quietly covered the tab for someone else's beer. He was generous, everyone agreed on that. He was kind, he was quiet. He kept to himself. That last part should have been a bigger red flag. A strange moment came when I noticed a man standing at the edge of the cemetery beneath a tree. He wasn't wearing black. He didn't come forward, just stood there, partially obscured, hands folded in front of him like he was waiting for something or someone. I watched him for a moment, and when I looked away and back he was gone, I shook it off. Too many emotions, too little sleep. My mind was playing tricks. I returned my gaze to the casket. Now halfway down, the priest was speaking. I wasn't listening. I remembered things instead. Small things. The way Jack used to whistle when he cooked, the smell of his aftershave, cheap but consistent, the click of his lighter when he thought I wasn't looking. The ghost stories he made up for me at bedtime, never quite finished, always ending in a whisper. Some things, he'd say, are better left sleeping. Back then, I thought, he was just being spooky. Fun Uncle Jack. Now, I'm not so sure. Asterisk, after everyone left, I stayed behind. Just me and the casket, now buried under a heap of flowers and mud. The rain had stopped. I knelt and ran my fingers along the smooth wood. It felt too final, too sealed. Something buzzed at the edge of my mind. I looked down at the flag again. Tucked into one of its folds, something foreign. Paper. I carefully opened the fabric, fingers growing still as I pulled out a tiny note, folded 3 times, nearly soaked through, but still legible. 5 words, scribbled in a rushed, jagged hand. Don't trust anyone. Start in the garage. I read it twice. Then again. I looked around. No one in sight. That night I didn't sleep. Not because of grief, exactly. That would come later. What kept me awake was the echo of Jack's voice in my head, softer than memory, heavier than truth, and the sharp, insistent tug in my gut that told me Jack's story didn't end in that grave. It was just beginning. The next morning, I drove straight to Jack's house. The place looked exactly as I remembered. Small, beige, square. Nothing remarkable from the outside. Just another quiet house on Alder Creek Lane, flanked by maple trees that dropped leaves like secrets. Jack had lived here for over 3 decades. Alone, no roommates, no visitors. The neighbors respected his space, the way people do when a man doesn't invite conversation. There was no will, no final wishes. Just that note burned into my brain. Start in the garage. The key was still under the brick by the back step, like it always had been. That alone gave me a chill. Who hides a warning in a flag and then leaves the door wide open? The air inside hit me like a memory. Coffee and sawdust. Old wood and worn leather. I stepped in, let the screen door slap shut behind me. The house was still, heavy with silence, like it was holding its breath. Dust motes floated through slats of sunlight, catching on the tips of books, boots, and worn picture frames. Nothing had been touched. His jacket still hung by the door. A pile of mail waited on the hall table. And then I saw a note, taped to the fridge. Take what you want, burn the rest. Asterisk, classic Jack. No flourish, no emotion, just instruction. It struck me how unceremonious it was. This was a man's entire life reduced to a line and a house full of silence. I moved from room to room, my footsteps loud on the wood. The living room was cluttered but orderly. Magazines stacked by the fireplace. His recliner beside a lamp that hadn't been turned off at the plug. The bedroom was neat. The bed made military tight. A small stack of books by the nightstand, all non-fiction, war history, government conspiracies, nothing surprising. It was the office that slowed me down. His study was lined with bookshelves, old file cabinets, and a heavy wooden desk I remembered from childhood. I sat behind it, suddenly 8 years old again, pretending to be him, thumbing through blank papers and spinning the tiny globe that still sat on the corner. I opened the drawers. Most were filled with the ordinary envelopes, batteries, socks, paper clips, stamps. Then I hit the bottom drawer. It was locked. Jack never locked anything. I stared at it for a long moment before getting a flathead from the kitchen and prying it open. The wood split with a reluctant crack. Inside was a single wooden box, no larger than a lunch pail. I pulled it out, placed it on the desk, and lifted the lid. 3 wallets, 3 different names, all with Jack's face. Kenneth, Doyle, Marcus Hicks, Jonathan Reed. Each ID had a different birth date, different state, different backstory, but the photo, the same aging face, the same eyes, the same scar above the left eyebrow. I sat back hard, the chair creaking beneath me. What the hell, Jack? There were notes too, slips of paper with numbers, airport codes, initials I didn't recognize, a map with pins, a burner phone, battery dead, and beneath it all, a notebook. Asterisk, every page was coded. Some kind of shorthand. Some entries were just dates. Others read like fragments of a conversation. Safe house compromised, M out, reroute. Was this a joke? Jack was many things, but he was never funny like that. I looked back at the box, at the IDs. 3 lives. 1 man, and somewhere between the disbelief and the creeping fear, a new feeling rose up in me. I needed answers, and I had no idea where they'd lead. Asterisk. The garage was exactly where I expected it. Back of the house, right beside the cracked cement driveway where Jack once taught me how to patch a tire. I hesitated with my hand on the knob, the words from the note repeating like a metronome. Start in the garage. It creaked open. At first glance, it was just as I remembered. The workbench lined with tools that hadn't moved in years. A lawn-mower, a few rickety shelves, full of paint cans and motor oil. It smelled like metal and damp concrete and time, but the far wall was different. There, behind an old tarp, I saw something that didn't belong, at least not in any ordinary garage. A steel cabinet, double-locked, a fingerprint scanner. I blinked. Jack was old school, no tech, no flash, and yet here was a military-grade biometric lock in a suburban garage. My pulse jumped. I touched the scanner. It turned green. The locks clicked open. Asterisk inside. Documents, reams of them. Photographs, passport copies, pages redacted in thick black ink. One binder caught my eye. Project Cloak, declassified level 4. Underneath it, a laptop. Surprisingly clean. I opened it. It powered on immediately. No password, desktop folders neatly labeled, Cloak logs, archives, safe contacts. I clicked into the logs. Video entries, grainy at first. Jack's face, younger, clean-shaven, speaking into the camera with military precision. Asset echo reporting. Surveillance complete. Primary unaware. Operation moving to phase 2. Echo. That was Jack. My Jack, but not the Jack I knew. Not the man who grilled burgers on the 4th of July and read Louis L'Amour by the fireplace. This was a trained operative, a handler, maybe even a spy. Was Jack CIA, Black Ops, deep cover? I dug deeper. Timestamps. Locations across the globe: Berlin, Bogota, Kuala Lumpur. Contacts codenamed Ghost, Wraith, and Falcon. I sat back against the garage wall, head spinning. Had I stumbled into a spy novel, a conspiracy, or something worse? I closed the laptop. The answers would keep, but now I knew the question. Who the hell was Uncle Jack? Asterisk. It was late that night when I returned to Jack's house. I hadn't planned to, but something about that laptop, it felt unfinished. I needed another look. The house was colder than before. The lights I had left on earlier were now off. I froze. I was sure I hadn't turned them off. My pulse spiked. I reached for my phone. No signal. Typical dead zone. I stepped inside. Quiet, still, but not empty. There was a smell in the air. Not the usual wood and leather, but something sharper, like ozone, like burnt wires. Then I heard ITA footstep. Upstairs. Slow. Deliberate. I should have left right then. But I didn't. Maybe I thought it was just nerves. Maybe some part of me hoped it was nothing. I crept up the stairs, each one creaking like it remembered me. The hallway was dark, the only light coming from under the study door. Someone was inside. I reached the top step, then froze. The study door was ajar. Inside, rustling. A drawer opening, papers moving. I pushed the door open slowly and came face to face with a man I'd never seen before. Black jacket, shaved head, scar over his cheekbone. He was flipping through Jack's coded notebook like he could read it. He looked up, and for a moment we just stared at each other. Then he bolted down the stairs, out the front. Gone before I could shout. I didn't chase him, because on the floor of the study, where he'd been standing, was something he'd dropped. *A. Flash drive. I picked it up. It was unlabeled and still warm. *. I sat at Jack's desk again. The flash drive cold in my hand now. The house had fallen back into silence, as if it hadn't just been broken into minutes ago. But something had changed. This wasn't about grief anymore. It wasn't even about curiosity. It was about survival. I slid the flash drive into the side of Jack's laptop. It whirred quietly, then opened only one file, echo_final.movi. Clicked it. The screen flickered. Static. Then Jack. Not old Jack, not the man I buried. This was him years ago, maybe a decade, wearing a tactical jacket, speaking directly into the lens like he'd done it 100 times before. If you're watching this, I'm either dead or compromised. My breath caught. My name is not Jack. It never was. My name is Jonathan Reed. I was born in Ohio in 1952, recruited at 20. CA then, off-grid, black programs, deep work. Project Cloak was my last full deployment. What we discovered, he paused, looked off camera, a long silence, it changes everything. Static cut in again, then the edges rapid-fire flashes. Documents, maps, people, faces, surveillance video. One man appeared repeatedly, always blurred, always in motion. The label under his footage read, *ACID, ZETA, unknown affiliation, compromised. Jack's voice resumed. Zeta is the ghost in the machine. He doesn't age. He doesn't die. We tried to stop him, failed. Everyone else, they're gone. I went dark, burned everything, except this. Another pause, then something quieter in his tone. You were never supposed to find this, but if you did, that means he's looking for you, too. So listen to me closely. Leave now. Don't trust the agency. Don't go to the police. This thing goes higher, deeper. If you stay, the screen blinked. GLITCHED. That, then stopped. The file ended. I sat frozen, heart racing. Every piece of this story was fracturing reality as I knew it. Zeta, immortal, a myth. Jack had spent the last years of his life hiding, running, preparing this breadcrumb trail for someone, for me. I pulled the flash drive out, and that's when I noticed the symbol on its casing, barely visible, a circle intersected by 3 vertical lines. I'd seen it before on one of the folders in the garage, the one labeled Zephyr. My phone vibrated. A text, unknown number, just 2 words. He knows, *. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I packed through essentials into a duffel. Documents, the flash drive, Jack's letters, photos. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay. The garage, I remembered the note in the flag. Start with the garage. Behind the tool bench, the wall panel was looser than the rest. I pried it open, expecting old junk. Instead, I found a case. Inside, a burner phone, an encrypted notebook, a small key, and an address scrawled in Jack's rushed handwriting, D6 Safe House. Trust no one. I hit the road, 4 hours later, I reached the outskirts of a forgotten town near the Idaho border. The safe house was buried under overgrowth, camouflaged as a weathered barn. I used the key. The door creaked open. It was pristine inside. Supplies, weapons, satellite gear, files, dozens of them, and a red light blinking on an old answering machine. I pressed play. Jack's voice, "You made it. Good if you're here. Things are worse than I feared. Look for the black case under the floorboards. Everything else you'll need is in there." I tore up the floor, found the case. Inside maps, a burner laptop, coordinates.na list of names. People Jack had worked with or watched. My name was on the list. Crossed out, asterisk, the door slammed. I froze. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, a voice raspy, low, "You shouldn't be here." Then darkness. Everything went black. Asterisk, I woke up on a cot. My wrists were zip-tied, the side of my head pounding like someone had dropped a cinder block on it. The room was dimly lit, concrete walls, no windows, a single bulb swung above, casting long shadows. A figure sat across from me, backlit still. "You're lucky we found you first," he said. The voice wasn't familiar, but the tone was. Government. Or ex-government. Clinical, cold, controlled. "Where am I?" I croaked. The man leaned forward, face still in shadow. "Safe house, Deltanine. Secondary fallback. You activated a dead channel. That flash drive, it's traceable. Zeta's been listening." I stared at him. "Zeta's real." He didn't answer right away, just reached over and dropped a folder into my lap. My zip ties were gone. I hadn't noticed. Inside the folder were photos, satellite shots, blurry surveillance images, grainy scans of reports, stamped eyes only and Project Cloak. In each photo, a man always different in style, but the same face, unchanged over decades. Asterisk, "That's Zeta," he said. "As far back as 1943, Berlin, then Saigon in 69, Sarajevo in 94, Lagos in 2008, never aged a day, never left a trace, and always there just before something goes wrong." "Is he human?" I asked. Silence. "Then we're not sure." I flipped through more pages. Maps marked in red. Locations circled, some I recognized. One just outside Portland, Jack's house. He was coming for Jack. The man nodded. Jack wasn't running. He was guarding something or someone. My stomach turned me. The man finally stood. His face now visible, older, scarred, an eye cloudy from some old injury. "You were born in 89, right?" he asked. I nodded. "Your birth certificate was faked. Your school records, everything." He handed me another envelope. Inside, my baby photos, but Jack was holding me. And someone else stood beside him. A woman, not Claire. My real mother. My mouth dried up. "You're part of this," he said. "More than you know. Jack didn't just raise you. He protected you from what you are." I dropped the photo. "What am I?" He looked at the door, then back at me, asterisk. "That's what we have to find out, before Zeta does." Suddenly, alarms blared, red lights flashed. The man pulled a sidearm, threw a bag at me. "Go now. South Tunnel. 2 clicks. There's a contact waiting. Name's Ramos. He'll get you out." "What about you?" I asked. He didn't respond. He just turned, weapon raised, and disappeared into the hallway. I ran through corridors of rusted steel and flickering lights. I didn't stop, not even when I heard the gunfire, not even when the walls shook, not even when I saw the silhouette at the far end of the tunnel, tall, still watching. Then gone, I emerged into the forest, gasping, and a man in a hood stepped forward. "You're the nephew," he said. "Jack said you'd come." He opened the back of a jeep. Inside dash another case, another name, and in the distance behind us, a shape moving too fast to be real. "We don't have much time," Ramos said. He slammed the door, and we vanished into the night. Let me know if you'd like this chapter expanded further. It currently runs approximately 1,200 words. Or if you're ready to proceed to the next volume, subplot, or postscript.